I will call the meeting back into order. For those of you joining us, we have an executive session before the meeting. The formalities of the flag salute and the sub meeting happened at 6. So we kind of start here at item 5 on our agenda. Welcome and thank you for coming, both those of you in person and those watching tonight on Zoom. Returning our agenda, item 6, we've got the reports of our borough administrator, public works, water and sewer, and tax collector that were distributed. I'm gonna just note, and as reminded by our administrator, Doug, one of the items there is some phenomenal work by our CFO who just slipped out and doesn't get to hear this, but let's all thank her. Ultimately, through some clever arranging of our bank accounts, she got us more in interest earned in the last month than we really earned in the last several years. Wow. Interest rates have changed for sure, and her keeping on top of that and allowing it to benefit us is frankly huge. So kudos to her, and wanted to call that out publicly. Again, ironically, that she's probably in her car on her way back, but we'll remember, let the world know that we did that, perhaps. But with that, anyone's any questions for Doug on those reports, or Doug, anything you want to highlight?
No, just thank you for doing that.
Right. With that, seeming with no questions, we'll go into our 2 discussion items. First, Heidi, I'll hand off to you to kind of lead us a bit on what EDC has been doing with the parking recommendations, hopefully for ordinance coming in the next couple of meetings, and I'll offer, but I can't promise it will work. I do have a copy of the updated map that if that would be helpful for you, I could try to put on the screen, but if it wouldn't be, it may not work anyway.
Yeah, you can put it on there, right?
I will try.
If not, it is linked in the, I don't know if you guys have the copy of my memo that you can actually click links on. But in a nutshell, I think did everyone here got the memo and went over that, and to fill folks in here, the EDC has spent a great deal of time looking over the borough parking code and the parking map. And there were a number of inconsistencies, and so we've gone through and kind of done some cleanup there, but there are 2 really significant issues as merchants in the current parking code that are problematic. The first of that is that all of our 2-hour parking restrictions, and for the benefit of those of you who are not retailers or merchants, the purpose of a 2-hour parking restriction is that leaves those parking spaces often available for people for patrons of your business. And so since our town is, obviously we have business and residential all mixed in, when we have a 2-hour parking zone on one side of the street, we have unlimited parking on the other side of the street for residents. But that 2-hour parking zone, as merchants, we are quite dependent on it because it allows for traffic to come and go readily. Right now, almost everywhere where there is a 2-hour parking zone, there is an exemption for Sundays and holidays. The Sunday exemption dates back to the blue laws when businesses were not open on Sundays. That is why there is a Sunday exemption. Sundays are a very important day for merchants, so we would like to remove the blue law exception. And the other issue is that from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. is also a very busy time for merchants. That's when people are stopping at a store on their way home from work. It tends to be, busier than like the middle of the day. But currently our parking restrictions go until 6 p.m. So it says, 2-hour parking from, I believe, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. That means that a resident or anybody can start parking at 4 p.m. and they do not need to move their car until 10 a.m. the next day. We want to move that 6 p.m. time up to 8 p.m. because what that will mean is that folks cannot start the unlimited parking until 6 p.m., which is when most businesses close. That's kind of those are the two parts of our memo and proposal that are substantive. We are aware, I mean, I can, do you want to keep going here?
Well, just look at the map up there. So the blue
Yeah.
areas are the
Yeah.
2-hour parking areas that you're talking
Okay,
about.
yes.
Um,
And so you will see in most cases where there's a blue line, the opposite side of the street has no markings, and no markings means completely unrestricted parking. There are some red zones. Red zones are no parking ever, basically. So you'll see that near the corners. You'll see that on streets that are too narrow to have parking on two sides of the street. And then I'm looking at I'm gonna pull the parking map up here too, so I can also look at it. The dotted line is no stopping or standing. There's different, schedules. That is
Is that by the
in,
library?
what?
Is that by the library, the no stopping or standing?
There is, well, because the library is so near to that other intersection and a crosswalk, so anytime there's gonna be a crosswalk, there's going to be no parking allowed immediately on both sides because of visibility. So removing that Sunday holiday exception, now there are some places where you may not be able to do that. And one note about removing the holiday exception, a holiday exception, I find if a sign says no parking Sundays and holidays, you're like, well, it's Martin Luther King Day. Is that a holiday? Is it like, what defines a holiday? And so I think you either need to specify what the holidays are or not have the exception. And I can tell you, no police officers and are ticketing on New Year's Day, Christmas Day, Thanksgiving Day. It's not.
or ever.
Well, yeah, that's another issue. We'll get there.
So maybe just to kind of,
Yeah.
to summarize, and what I think perhaps a good way
Yeah.
forward is that, so the memo that EDC put together has both, just things that are just downright broken and need to be fixed.
Right.
And then, address the issue and have a recommendation on an alteration of the 2-hour parking zones, both to change the Sunday and to change the hours. And then perhaps the next step, and I don't know if you wanna poll everybody or just kind of advance it, but to work on an ordinance, the only request I would have is that I think in us thinking through this and looking at the ordinance, just to make sure that there's been some, we have some information just to make sure, that the residential areas are covered, that it's not gonna be a big hardship for people who live there. Sounds like it won't be, but I just wanna make sure someone has done the work to do that, when we, introduce that. So.
I will, just give you a little summary on the little bit of work I did on that part so far, because Doug did reach out to me in advance. And Doug provided me with a list of rental units, and so I just went over, I went to the blocks where there is some sort of a parking restriction, and where there also are, basically multifamily units, which are often rental units, along East Broad, Railroad Place, Seminary, and West Broad. And I would say the East Broad places, now, I was not able to, I didn't get contact information from the landlord, so this was literally me walking.
Yeah.
Maybe like, how many driveways do you have,
But you're doing this and
Yeah.
have that, and it'll be convincing when we, okay.
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
we're- that's
so
what we're looking for.
we're absolutely doing that,
Right.
and, yeah.
Right out the electric meter, that's how you usually.
Yeah, I mean, and once we actually have landlord contact information, we can do it a little more officially than being creepy and walking people's
Got it.
driveways.
So no formal action here, but maybe just a
I mean,
show
yeah,
of nods
just
that
to
that
look
people, this makes sense to people and we'll.
Yeah,
And,
I think as long as we're protecting residential parking, and don't have off-street parking, that's my own thing.
yeah, I mean, and that's why we're not adding any no parking zone. We're not adding any 2-hour zones. All we're doing is
Right, but-
giving the merchants back Sunday and 2 hours at the end of the day. That's,
But it's a draw between someone coming home from work at 5 o'clock would perhaps have a different
right,
scenario.
well, then they would
You'll
park
have-
across the street. Yeah.
And
Right.
you're gonna
Yes.
do the things that you said, and we'll be
Yeah.
prepared to understand what that will look like for them when we introduce it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
we'll
was just
start
saying that,
working on the ordinance, we'll
Sounds-
start
yeah.
updating
Yeah.
the ordinance.
I'm just wondering about that Calvary Baptist Church, I guess it is on East Broad there. Cause I know they use their parking right in front of their.
So one thing you'd notice, I did mention in the memo that the churches, and I said areas designated for 2-hour parking that surround an active church may need to have their Sunday exception included, or the limit could be extended to 4 hours.
Right.
And I think we could simply talk to the churches because you do often need to park for more than 2 hours. Now, that parking restriction wasn't put in place for the benefit of those churches. I mean, the Sunday exception, however, it has worked out that that's, and so we just want to make sure people can still also park when they're going to church. And I think that's an easy thing to either make those a 4-hour limit, or you're gonna have a couple blocks where you're just not gonna.
Yeah, like Princeton Ave, right?
I was invited to a service in a couple of weeks at one of the churches that I think is gonna well exceed 4 hours, so we'll look at that.
Yeah, I mean, and actually Princeton Ave, I don't think.
That's crazy parking there.
That's-
It's getting my thighs.
But Prospect already doesn't have, Prospect is an example of someplace that we found a 2-hour zone that shouldn't exist.
Right.
So we found that that East Prospect Street on the side that the school buses park on the school side is zoned for 2-hour parking. There's never been a sign to that effect. We don't know why it was zoned for 2-hour parking. And in fact, we don't recommend that we don't recommend that 2-hour zone there because the residents are not allowed to park on the other side of the street. So if you zoned East Prospect Street for 2-hour parking, which it is currently zoned for, the residents would have no place to park other than there.
It wasn't for the school buses for a limited time or something?
No, because it's on top, there's the school bus restriction.
Okay.
And then on top of that, there's a 2-hour restriction. So that's the sort of thing, when we do this ordinance, we will clean up and get rid of, those sorts of, those
Sounds
sorts
like
of issues.
the work to make sure that there aren't unintended consequences is being done, and I think that's what we're looking for. So thank you for your work on this, and we'll look forward to seeing that in a future meeting. Thank you.
And we just have to, we just have to make sure, I don't know if you looked into it at all, whether or not you have to get the county to approve any of the changes on this.
I imagine on the county roads we may, but.
May, I know,
I'm sure
But
we'll-
it's a parking issue, not I don't know. We will
Yeah, we
find
can-
that out this month.
Yeah, we could definitely help you guys with that
In
too.
other towns, I've had to have them sign off on New Jersey Transit bus stop changes, so
It's
it's
harder at the
possible
state
that.
level. Yeah,
may,
state, you would
know.
definitely need it, but it might be.
It's a good point.
Speaking of the county, we do have one question. So one of the things that is specifically mentioned in the memo is it's page 2, West Broad Street North, 200 feet east from Mercer Street. There are 2 ordinances. There's a 100-foot ordinance restricting parking, and there's a 200-foot ordinance restricting parking. I talked to somebody who was aware of when it actually happened. The 100-foot ordinance was supposed to replace the 200-foot ordinance. The 200-foot ordinance, nobody can find a reason for why you shouldn't be able to park. Basically, it's restricting right now. It is illegal to park in front of the historic Baptist church, and it's 200 feet from the curb at Mercer Street. It's been on the books as 200 feet and never repealed. The 100 feet is what is actually painted yellow and what is adhered to. And originally, when I drafted this memo, it was like, let's just clean up this 200 feet ordinance. Before we got to this meeting, the county took it upon themselves to put up a no parking sign without any notice to any of us, including Doug. Like, we had no idea. So right now, there is a no parking here to corner sign in front of the Old School Baptist Church, which is actually significantly detrimental to the businesses at our end of town. I probably shouldn't say publicly how I deal with it. I might just park there, and then that way I'm demonstrating to people that I'm not getting issued a ticket. I didn't cover the sign though. I just parked my car there. But I would, if there is a way that we can have that sign removed, without waiting, many months to clean up this, that would be lovely. Thank you. And I was following the rules and not getting out my, regs by myself.
Next, on our discussion, Krista, do you wanna, I'm happy to put some slides up, but do you wanna talk a bit about what has happened, the past couple of weeks with the Broad Street?
Yeah, some very exciting news that I'm sure most, if not all of you have noticed. We have,
I'm not sharing.
drum roll please.
For those of us watching at home too, so. Oops.
So, everyone may have noticed that along West Broad Street, the speed limit is now 25 miles an hour where it was once 30. And we knew that this was coming. It did come a little bit earlier than expected, but hey, better sooner rather than later. And this will eventually be extended to East Broad Street as well. So we can see here that the sign, that's at Broad and Well in there, notifying drivers that the speed limit ahead has been lowered because it was once 30 miles an hour. You may have also noticed that signs have gone up at Broad and Greenwood to signify there's no longer any right-hand turns on red there. So that has also been restricted. So this just shows what has been implemented and what is coming. Pretty straightforward. The entirety of Broad Street will eventually be 25 miles an hour. And Broad and Greenwood is no turn on red. Broad and Princeton continues to be no turn on red. Broad and Llewellyn has limited turns on red at this point. So we have some materials for an education campaign. You know, we've been trying to shout this from the rooftops because not only are we very proud of this accomplishment as far as improving pedestrian and bike safety, but we want to make sure that everyone knows that there will be a period of increased enforcement coming up. So as you can see, the top two images there, the very elegant ones, the one that is maroon and beige, and then the one next to that is black and white and gray. Those were designed by the PBSAC chair, Melbourne, and vice chair, Ann Hayton. And these are meant to be yard signs. We're hoping to get some banners made to go where currently the 4-foot passing law banner is in front of Borough Hall here and in front of the pump house at Model and Llewellyn. So just to get the word out about that. And again, these are just, it's a really elegant design. It shows the town colors. You can, if you look closely, you can see that there's a little image of a Victorian house in the background. So I think it really embodies the spirit of the borough and our style, and just make sure that everyone knows that this is coming. And the image below that is part of a separate flyer that we would like for the police to be handing out to people. So we're gonna have a sort of warning campaign ahead of the increased enforcement, a 2-week period where police will be pulling people over to give them warnings. Unless, of course, they are excessively speeding, then they will get a ticket. But say you're going, you know, 35 in the 30-mile-an-hour zone, you would get pulled over and get a warning for that now. This image just shows the survivability rate of a pedestrian when struck at varying speeds by a vehicle. So the first is 20 miles an hour, then 30, then 40, and you can see the blue figures are the percent of pedestrians that would survive that impact. The red are the ones that would not. And I think you can see that a pretty significant jump between the different speed levels, and I think this is a really good way just to get that message across with a powerful image immediately, because again, the intention is for these to be handed out to people who are driving by a police officer, so in the middle, look down, see this real quick while they're stopped, you know, digest this information and internalize it. It's kind of like, I think about like how when I'm dealing with my kids, and instead of just saying like, no, don't do that, we're explaining why we want you to actually slow down. It's not just some arbitrary rule. It's because we are genuinely trying to make our streets safer for vulnerable road users. And again, there's so many parties involved in this, and it's just been a long time coming, but it's been a real team effort. Of course, PBSAC and all the volunteers there, thank you guys so much. Mercer County engineering staff and planning, they have been incredibly helpful with all of this. Mercer County commissioners, county executive, and their administration, Hopewell Township Committee, they actually passed a resolution of support to lower the speed limit on 654 approaching the borough. So where Windsor Way is now 25 miles an hour. Eventually, just outside the borough line, it will be lowered to, I think it was 35 miles an hour, where it's currently 45, just to sort of ease that transitional speed, so you're not coming straight from 45 to 25 when you hit the borough line. So again, we thank this township committee for their support on that. And of course, the Hopewell Township Police Department and Chief Rosso and the Greater Mercer Transportation Management Association, always just invaluable help from them.
Awesome.
And are we gonna do the
the recommendations too.
Go for it, but thank you, Krista, and everyone involved in getting this done. It was a long time coming, and as you're about to hear, we're not even done with this part, and we're not gonna stop, so that we're never gonna be safe enough or satisfied with what our downtown is like for pedestrians and users, and I'm very appreciative of everyone working on this, and thank you for picking up immediately to the next thing and not even stopping. We're not gonna, ironically, we're not gonna slow down when it comes to safety. Everyone is gonna slow
Everyone
down,
else has to slow down.
but
We're
not us,
gonna
not our
slow down.
volunteers. So thank you, Kristen.
Thanks, Mayor Kennedy. So, the PBSEC has also put together some sort of interim measures that we would like to have Doug pass on to the county engineer, anticipating repaving of Broad Street this spring, hopefully. So most of this is just paint. It's really low cost things for the most part. There's some more expensive things, but hey, you can always, when I say shoot for the moon, you'll still land amongst the stars. That's what we're going for. Should I just read it through? 'Cause
Sure, I think, this is in everyone's packet, there's things you wanna highlight and get feedback on, now's the chance for that, and then just briefly summarizing perhaps for the public, what types of things you're looking at and when we might have an opportunity to get them, I guess.
Yeah, it's mostly paint on the roads, so things that will grab drivers' attention, things that will have been proven to slow people down when they are driving, like, the optical speed bars give the illusion that a driver is driving faster. So that would, unconsciously someone would slow down because it feels like they are driving faster, so that's just paint on the road. Colorful paint in the parking areas, like, particularly around the Broken, like we were just talking about, a lot of people park there anyway, and not just because it's faded, like what if we get more attention there and show that it is a parking zone? Because it does obstruct the vision for pedestrians who are trying to cross and cars, seeing pedestrians trying to cross there. We would like for them to do a road diet, which is basically, minimizing the lane width to the minimum, which is generally accepted is 11 feet. So we can get them down to 11 feet, again, probably mostly with paint, shoulders, delineated parking, things like that. More of the in-street pedestrian crossing signs, more RFBs, those are the things that have the library, you push the button, the lights flash, and hopefully people stop so you can cross there. And those are, a lot of them are included in the Safe Routes to School grant, so hopefully if we're awarded that, they will be coming to Broad Street and also closer to the school. That's a bold one. Pedestrian initiated all stop at Llewellyn and Broad. Hey, never stop dreaming. It's my understanding that at least Broad and Greenwood, our current signal there does not have the capabilities to be programmed to be a pedestrian initiated all stop. It is also the county engineer's opinion that that is not the most effective way to increase pedestrian and bike safety at these intersections. So we would have to ask, but I would imagine that the signal at Broad and Llewellyn probably also does not have the capabilities to be programmed to be a pedestrian initiated all stop. Unfortunately, but again, this is on the list and hey, it would be fantastic if we could get that. We would like to assess and upgrade nighttime lighting. There's been a lot of talk about that. So hopefully PBSAC will be able to generate some sort of report where we can just get an idea of what the current lighting system is for pedestrians and cyclists and eventually move towards installing more pedestrian friendly lighting. It's called pedestrian scale lighting. And basically, now we have these lights that are very high up, the traffic lights. And this would be a lower positioning of a light that really focuses on the pedestrian in the crosswalk so that not only they can see better, but drivers can see them better when they're approaching. Oh, look at this, adjust speed limits. Hey, there we go. Check that one off. And that is basically it for the list. So hopefully, Doug, you can get in touch with the county engineer at some point soon, run some of these by him, see what he thinks about them. Again, it's mostly paint. None of them are like huge asks, but maybe there's some unintended consequences we've thought about or something like that. And if, he's opposed to any of these, maybe it's a good idea to sort of ask him what he thinks would be good interim safety measures that we could do that were not, that are cost effective.
Sure.
Is he easier?
Okay. Dan, questions for Krista?
Yeah, more of a comment. I love the, improved lighting for many reasons,
Yeah.
safety, but I would love for the EDC to kind of officially have a conversation with you, because we also want to work on improved lighting. And so I just think that that's something, and also, you know, being mindful of the dark skies, that we can all work together, and I think that's something, yeah.
I mean, I think that's gonna be a long-term project because that will require funding that we don't currently have, so it's gonna be generating a report, like doing the
Right.
assessment, seeking out funding opportunities and moving forward with that, but of course, it's your.
Yeah.
Lighting is particularly interesting because at one hand, you know, we want more of it for safety, we want less of it for our environment, we want it to be palatable and inviting for our businesses. There's a lot of interesting excellent point though, just make sure that everyone talking about lighting gets.
That we all do it
looped
together,
in.
so that we.
Well, actually, Mr. Ackerman, who's been the advocate for dark skies, who was here at our last meeting, and spoke to everyone up here, and probably even some of you out there. When we talked about this, our goals are actually pretty well aligned, because we're talking about directing the lighting to the right place and not having it spill out and causing sort of light pollution.
Yeah.
That was, so I think that, yeah, we have basically the same goal.
Yeah.
And I'll just note again, the benefit, the spillover benefit to having these discussions and raising these issues and identifying things important in this community, even before we get to the plan or the action of the ordinance, I see a planning board member nodding, because at a recent planning board meeting, there was an application, and essentially, without talking about what the application really was for, there was some lighting involved, and message received by the applicant that Hopewell Borough wanted dark sky compliant lighting. And they have picked up from the message we're doing, even before we get to our ordinance, that just by identifying these things amongst our committees and ourselves, and the word is starting to get out, and as we, you know, continue with these priorities, it will eventually lead to an ordinance too. But I just wanted to thank everyone involved with lighting specifically, because there's already a visible or invisible, depending how you view lighting or dark sky compliant things, impact from these discussions, even before we get to the pieces on the plan that we were expecting to implement. So just again, thank you to everyone involved for that. With that, so other questions for Krista, I would like to open the meeting. I'd like to open the meeting to the public for those of you here in person here tonight. You know the drill, say your name and as much about yourself as you're comfortable location-wise, and we'll go from there.
But you're.
No one knows where I live, but I'm in the borough, Melissa Cookman. A couple of things, and congratulations on the pedestrian thing. It's just remarkable. It happened so fast. It was unbelievable. The increased enforcement, I'm curious when it's gonna start, because it hasn't started.
No, it has not started. So first we want to do the awareness campaign,
Oh,
just to make sure that everyone knows, because again, I hate saying this because I'm putting the word out there, but we don't want it to appear that it is a money grab, like, hey, we got you. The
Right.
goal is to actually slow people
especially
down.
as it gets to the end of the month. Don't like that.
Well, I don't, and the awareness campaign might align with that, but the increased enforcement, I suspect will be closer to the beginning of the month, just timing wise for what we have planned.
And Christy, your hair looks fabulous tonight. This is awesome, being able to see all of that, and what's going on. And I'm wondering, because I know when COVID was happening, there was the ability for people on Zoom to, speak, ask a question. And I'm wondering if, I don't know how many people watch on Zoom, but is that something that might be, able to?
So,
I know
yes, and there are 8 people on Zoom tonight, and our newly formed communication committee met last week, and we will be testing, we did some testing earlier this week.
Awesome.
We're gonna give it a go later this meeting, actually. So
great.
the second, you know, I was a little specific in saying, inviting people in the room here to come up for public comment. That was perhaps a preview that I'll say something slightly different at our public comment thing, and we're gonna give it a try.
Okay, that's awesome. I know that this, Broad Street is supposed to be repaved, but there's some serious potholes, as I'm sure you've all noticed. Is there anything that can be done until the county repaves it? I mean, they're big, they're deep, people are gonna loose tires.
I don't know the answer to that, Doug, I mean, if,
Yeah, we notified the county,
Okay,
and
so they'll put some gravel in or something.
they should be,
Okay.
good. Yes.
And when we're talking about all of these parking issues and the lighting issues, there's this forgotten part of the town sometimes called Somerset Street. From Chubby's down to Twine and whatever the future is, that other building, and I just wanna remind everybody, because for years, events happen, things happen, it's a downtown thing, and it's like, we don't exist. And I know we're off the beaten path, and that was our choice, but just to keep that
You
in
would put
mind.
that in the report, right, maybe?
Yes, Somerset Street it's there. Yes, yeah.
Thank you, thank you, and again, the pedestrian bicycle thing, that's just awesome, I know how hard you guys worked, so thank you for that.
And your hair looks good tonight. Your hair looks good tonight.
It looks good.
starting next meeting, we will limit any
Yeah, it is.
hair compliment to,
Try and stop me, Ryan.
thank you. Any other members of the public like to speak?
Hi, Mark Peters, 83 West Broad Street, your Board of Education elected official. I was just coming to say hello, touch base, let you know about what's going on with the referendum campaign. There's going to be a lot of outreach over the course of the next 9 months. It's a pretty serious referendum. We've been talking about it extensively. We're going to be putting it to vote in September ahead of the November election. There's a lot to unpack here, but if anybody wants to talk about anything, happy to talk to you one-on-one. Ryan, thank you for continuing to be part of the meetings with the mayors. A lot to unpack, but just wanted to put it out there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to come knock on my front door. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else for public comment or questions? No?
Hi, Marion Labos, Model Avenue. Just wanted to continue the conversation about the crosswalks and the pedestrian crossing signs, mentioning that they're not compatible with the pedestrian all-stop. Does the county have any plans to upgrade them so that they would be more accessible to handicapped individuals? Because newer neighborhoods and newer crossings have the buttons that say walk, so that, because recently I did actually see somebody going down Broad Street with their cane, and I was like, I wonder how they're managing in our environment. So, just a question.
I did hear a while ago from the engineering department, this is like a couple of years ago, so I don't know how accurate this is, that they did at some point have plans to have sensors there so that you wouldn't have to like push the button, like if someone approached to cross there, it would automatically change. So I don't know if that included what you're talking about as well. But again, the last that we heard from the county engineering department about our signalized intersections is that it was their ultimate goal to move 2 of them to mini roundabouts, right? So no longer signalized. But again, that requires a lot of funding that doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah, and then I guess hopefully those mini roundabouts will also have the capability of making it accessible for everybody in our community.
But I think we do, we have an obligation obviously to be ADA compliant, so perhaps it's something that Doug could bring up when he does speak to the county engineer. Just ask, what their plans are for that.
I suspect, apologies, I think things like curbing, and once you go off pavement, perhaps that some of these things are probably ours. The tactile pads and stuff that's approaching, whether that's, I don't know, I'm curious whether it's a county responsibility or ours, and I'm
Yeah, I'd have to check.
imagining it's probably, that's the borough side of the expense ledger, just as.
I'm thinking so,
Yeah.
but I can confirm that with them.
Well,
Great, good to know who has to pay for it if they get that far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing? Thank you. No, I can't, okay, that's right.
We haven't closed.
Thank you for using both sides of the paper. That's huge. That's never been done before at the planning board last night too. It's usually a single sided, everything's double sided. So that's really great.
Brian doesn't like print them out.
Because of the use of both sides, actually, I was gonna make a joke about.
Yeah.
It's
probably Reggie.
There you go. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
In person?
Seeing none, I'd like to take a motion to end the first public comment section.
I'll motion.
All right, Deb, Krista, second, all in favor? Thank you. Next, we have 3 sets of minutes. I think the first 2 are, well, maybe we'll take them. Does everyone else look for the first 2? I'll take a motion on the first 2 first, because there's a very limited pool of people can,
I'll move them.
all right. Do I have a second? Deb, Krista, second, all in favor of the Feb 1 regular and executive?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, I'll entertain a motion from either Heidi or David on the January 29th subcommittee meeting.
I will make a motion to approve those.
Second.
Well, I'm glad that there wasn't a tie there.
I know.
Once ever, use of that authority.
I never said that.
So both of you in favor? All right, thank you. And thank those, in particular, our minutes are always excellent, but those ones in particular, Reggie, thank you.
Yes.
That was
Yes, thank you.
a challenging meeting, and excellent minutes. Well, next, for those watching at home, and here we have a series of second readings of ordinances. So, those of you new here, that means that each one has a public hearing. So for each of these next things, we will go through, there will be a discussion opportunity in addition to the public discussion point that we just had. So with that, Reggie, item 10, ordinance 877.
Bond ordinance amending section 3A of bond ordinance number 849 of the Borough of Hopewell, in the County of Mercer, New Jersey, finally adopted June 3rd, 2021, in order to amend the description of the project to include restoration of and repairs to historic Hopewell Borough buildings.
Thank you. Doug, stop me when I get this wrong, but we extensively talked about this last month. These are changes to allow us to fund the reconstruction and restoration of the train station. The grant, we received a significant grant with the local match for the rest, and the bids came up quite high. So Doug went to bat for us, and essentially we will be through a series of other actions going forward with the construction, amending our grant application to allow 50% match of the part of the work, and then going for a new grant for a 60% match of the remainder. So good work on his end, and this will allow that to happen. So I'll look a motion to open the meeting to the public. Or I'll open to the public. Anyone like to comment on this one? Feel free. If not, I'll take a motion to close the public discussion on ordinance 877.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Now I'll entertain a motion to adopt on second reading ordinance 877. Great.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell,
Oh, no, do
County.
we need a roll call on it or?
Oh,
not?
okay, sorry.
Yes.
Still long time.
Ms. Hook?
Yeah.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. McCullough?
Yeah.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yeah.
Ms. Lennox?
Yes.
Our item 11, our next second reading and public hearing for an ordinance. This is ordinance number 878.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, New Jersey, creating lead-based paint hazard inspection requirements for rental dwellings and establishing a new chapter of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
Thanks, Reggie. Again, I think this was discussed last month as a state mandate for us to have a system in place for inspections of apartments for lead paint. This has our rules for it. We'll be later on this evening awarding a concession for a contract essentially for a company to do this for landlords who don't do it themselves. And it has a fee schedule and a requirement that came from the state for this to all happen by this summer.
And it's rental units, not just apartments. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Rental apartments.
Rental unit, right, I mean, rental houses count?
I mean, I just want to
Yeah.
distinguish
Yeah.
between fee-owned
I'm
condominiums.
clarifying this for
If you were-
personal reasons,
If you rent
if you rent it.
any unit that is rented,
Yes.
whether it be a house, condominium, multifamily, townhouse, would apply to this. Yes.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, there are some exceptions, but
Yeah,
they're
and
not,
but single family as well as apartment, that was all I was trying to
Yes.
clarify. Thank you.
yes.
I will, open the meeting to the public for discussion and public hearing on this ordinance. Seeing none, I accept the motion to close.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Now I'll accept the motion to adopt ordinance 878. So moved. Roll call.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. McCullough?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yeah.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes.
All right, next public hearing on ordinance 879.
Bond ordinance providing for the water main replacement of Newell Place for the water utility in and by the Borough of Hopewell and the County of Mercer, New Jersey, appropriating $100,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $95,000 bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof.
Newell Road will be repaved soon. This will allow us to jimmy together the funds to replace the water main prior to repaving the road.
And,
What we do?
the low bid just made it in under 100,000. There was one that was over 200,000. If you're not, I know. So, 97,000 change.
Some neighbors are very excited.
Well, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Happiness is a new one.
I'll open the meeting to the public for any discussion on ordinance 879. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the public. So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll next accept the motion to adopt ordinance 879.
Second.
Sorry, roll call.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. McCullough?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Flanagan?
Yes.
Again, those following at home are here in person. The next ordinances we have are first reading. We don't have a public hearing or discussion on them until next month, but they'll get a bit of an explanation. So first, ordinance number 880.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, New Jersey regarding tree removal and replacement and amending the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
So I'm gonna look to my left or my right for the explanation on this one. Sherry or
Sure.
Sherry,
Yeah.
wanna give it a quick, and allow work went into this?
Sure, so, this came down, and Lisa, you can correct me if I'm speaking not correctly, from New Jersey DEP, part of the whole stormwater, control revision, and, part of that was tree removal and replacement, so overall, it's a very good thing. We love our trees here in Hopewell, and, it doesn't change things significantly if there are trees that are dead or dying or a hazard. It really is focusing on trees on your property that you just want removed because you don't like them, you don't like breaking leaves. And it protects, the tree's ability to absorb water, essentially. So, there are a application that you would file similar to when you are looking to have a tree serviced. And there's, if it is a healthy, otherwise healthy tree that you just want to remove, there's some direction on how to replace that tree, depending on how big the tree is, how many trees you replace it with. And some guidance from, the shade tree committee on what types of trees work best here in Hopewell. So, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
Look, the only thing I would add to that is that it also finally codifies, the fact that the borough trees cannot be taken down by random residents for the reason that they're our property, even though they're in front of somebody's house, right? So we finally have that on the books.
Yeah.
Which is.
Yeah, they're called street trees.
What's that?
They're called street trees.
Thank you.
Yep,
The
in
street
ordinance.
trees are now legally protected with this ordinance. We've been working for that for a long time. So thank you.
A couple of questions from me, and I'll see who can field them. I asked in advance, some of mine, I thought, just looking. Invasive trees, like say you have a tree of heaven or something like that, that's something we could take that, would that need to be replaced under this if you had a, it's a live tree, but one that is a problem, point? And
There are exceptions planting
I
those.
was-
Right, there are
if that's
exceptions.
one of the, I briefly looked through, I couldn't figure out if, a terribly invasive tree that is
You know,
like,
in that case, you probably would need to go to a licensed professional. And they can attest to the fact that it is a threat to public health, and
You
if you
could call
could,
it a hazard tree, probably.
and then it falls under hazard tree, but you would just need that extra,
and I-
certification.
It may not be a threat to public health, it may be a threat to the environment because it's an invasive. I wonder.
That's, yeah, public
Is it
safety and
possible to-
public welfare, yeah,
Yeah,
that falls
well,
under that.
Okay, if you think that legally that covers it, but I mean, otherwise, can you put native tree species or some other qualifier in there that?
Yeah, we have that in for the type.
well, the replacement, yeah.
Replacement trees.
Yeah, but I mean, so if you cut down a tree of heaven, you have to replace it with a native.
Native
oak.
tree. Yeah, that's what-
Yeah, and it's two good things happen there.
Yeah.
Plus we get 20.
Right, well, I guess if it is something that is truly a, a threat to some sort of
Well, is it-
welfare, then
They're not really
If it
threats.
fits-
they're
the
just
only difference is that you wouldn't, if it falls under the hazard tree definition, is that you don't have to replace it.
Yeah,
Right.
so the hazard tree is something like someone's gonna fall on you or hurt someone.
Right.
This is like it's got spotted lanternflies.
Or it's an invasive that's just going to produce a lot more of itself.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are statewide programs to eliminate invasive species of all
Right.
different kinds, of which trees are one.
So number D here says determined to be a threat to public health, safety and or welfare by an LTCO or
There might be,
LTCO.
hold on one second, there might be one more,
So maybe
Exception.
your arborist can go, oh, just kill that thing.
Yeah.
But
But we still want them to replace it with a native tree, that's the thing.
Well, you want it to be native,
well,
it's
the latter
whether,
part is easy,
Yeah.
but it's what you're.
Yeah.
with some of these trees, like if it, it's not a tree, but if you're autumn olive or multiflora rose removal, you want people to do that. You don't want people to have to then also pay to plant trees to replace the invasive
Right.
things that were
Correct.
being destroying the environment.
There's a bunch.
I mean, I don't know what, one of the exceptions has to do with state decommissioning. I have no idea what that, is there I don't really,
I don't know.
okay, that was one of the state
Apologies
exceptions.
for thinking of
Interesting
that now,
question.
but, and I don't know there's any big, but, and I don't like the Sound Conservancy from time to time does go and, does,
They cleared them out.
right, well, I don't think that, hopefully, none of those trees have caliper sizes of that would trigger this,
But
but
the people that would really be able to
a
help
really
us with
good
this
point.
question is Phobos, because they're very much involved in the invasive species
Yes, they
stuff.
are.
I mean,
Well, Bill
task
Plummer,
force
who
and-
just joined
He's on the-
State
he's
Tree,
on
he's
the-
a
Okay.
certified arborist, so.
well, I think it's more of a technical question about whether that, in removing a tree of heaven or some other invasive thing, which is positive, you need to go through this permit process.
Yeah, and I wonder if
I'm
there's
curious
something through the
about that.
NJDEP, there's also this provision about, if it's part of, this says, an environmental cleanup, or it could be a DEP approved habitat enhancement plan, or municipal forestry plan, so there might be,
Maybe there's a way that we can codify that in terms of adopting some sort of invasive species policy, I mean,
I think we should get this on the books and then.
Yeah,
work
no, I
through it.
agree, I just think it's
Yeah.
you don't wanna get, I guess, and one question, how often does it come up? I mean, at this
Not
point,
often, but.
so that's good, so you're not going to be hurting people by requiring, at this point in time, you're not gonna be stopping anyone from removing a tree.
I'm sure that the administrator of this program is not gonna,
Yeah.
if someone goes and is doing the
No.
right thing and removing an invasive tree, they might not.
Right, because
Give it a tree check.
absolutely enforcement is.
Yeah.
Discretionary,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so the question one, question two was, and I think I had this last time, and I think the answer is it's defined, but there is we're not regulating the drip zone in any way. It's defined there, but there's nothing,
that's correct.
okay,
You could,
I'm not suggesting we should or not, I just want to
But, yeah,
understand. Some other
that-
towns, if you park a truck in the drip
well,
zone,
the only-
the arborist comes
So
out,
we
so.
are regulating the stuff, soil compaction and other things that affect, right, they talked about over mulching, all that's all in there.
well, also, I mean, if you look at the definition of remove, it could, or over mulching or improper mulching, and it could lead to the decline or death of the tree. So in a real egregious case, it could, someone does something to roots or the drip line, it could destroy the tree, in which case it would be akin to a removal,
I
but.
mean, if people, an arborist once explained to me that if you literally decide to raise the grade around a tree, you'll see trees where they put a little sort of stone wall in there, there's like a little well around it, because they raised the grade around the tree, and they didn't want to kill the tree.
Right.
But he said, very often you will kill the tree by doing that,
Yeah.
because trees exchange oxygen through the root systems close to the surface. So I think part of that rationale is, yeah, if somebody comes in, they can regrade their property. But if the tree survives, and sometimes they do, I suppose that's.
I mean, yeah, it does have soil compaction here too, so you could get, but it's going to be difficult to.
Yeah, we're not just be out there
The
measuring.
very real experience in other towns who do police the drip zone is that you need, and the neighbors will enforce it for you with their arborist, is that, they'll fence off and you can't really touch that, and I don't really have a horse there, I just wasn't sure where we are in policing that, that's.
Right, and it is something that we think about doing through construction, because that's when it comes up.
Right.
During construction projects is when you have to protect the, construction, I guess you create, like some fencing around the trees.
Drive bulldozer, that thing,
Yes.
But if someone were to do something really egregious, then they'd be on the hook to replace it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's language in there that I think you changed, so it's basically anyone causing a tree.
right, it's the owner or because they like to point fingers. We've seen in other towns where the contractors say, it wasn't my fault, it was the owner's fault. The owner will say, it wasn't my fault, it was the contractor's fault. Well,
Right.
here, the language is such that it's on both of them.
Right,
Because they're both responsible
right.
to know what's
Somebody's
happening.
gonna pay it for a tree.
Right, apologies for derailing, that,
No, it wasn't really.
No, these are-
that was the explanation, I'll accept the motion, I assume,
Oh,
perhaps.
I have one other question, which is, again, if there's another rule. So I've never had this problem, but I know other people who have insurers who will say, well, this big towering tree over your house has to come down. Because basically, it may be a perfectly healthy tree, but in a windstorm, this thing can fall on you and everything. Be like, New Jersey manufacturers sort of, so they have very good premiums, but I've known people who've had to actually, and does that fall under the hazardous tree because an insurance company made that determination, or do you just have to get your arborist to?
I do, I think it does fall under hazard tree.
Okay.
It's because it's,
Yeah, I mean,
it,
according to some.
you may have to get
you got
a
the
tree
arborist.
professional, you may have to get someone to
Say,
come out.
Yeah.
And if it is already causing damage to a building, it definitely falls under.
Right, but there's ones that are that aren't, but anyway, that's it.
Yeah, but it is a threat. I mean, I know that it does say, we have to get either a licensed professional.
Yeah, we've chosen a very reasonable administrator to run this program.
Right,
And I trust it'll be done
Right.
fairly. With
Yeah,
that, there's a motion to introduce,
yes.
880. Beth, do we have a second? Sherry? All in.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. McCullough?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Next, we have, ordinance 881.
An ordinance of the Borough of Hopewell, County of Mercer, New Jersey regarding water and sewer rates and amending chapters 10 and 17 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Hopewell, 1975.
So, for those here, I'll start an explanation, then I'll yield to Doug and David briefly. This is the start of a process that we expect to happen publicly and with more information in our April meeting. This ordinance will allow us to will give us a range of water rates. We're currently looking now at what those rates for 2024 will be. Next month, then we'll do the second reading and a public hearing on this ordinance on the range of rates and a resolution setting a specific rate. We're not here tonight with a specific rate. I will say though, and we will be developing more information on this and communicating it quite a bit between now and April. But the need to raise rates, again, for this year is unfortunately very real, and we will be, a lot of work is being done right now and to determine what that needs to be and what our best options are with water rates, but, our commitment is to, provide the best information we can to as many people as possible and to discuss this at our April meeting. Doug, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you said it all.
David?
No, I think, other than we're looking at all sorts of different options in terms of how to structure the rates and how to moderate the impact on people, whether it's incomes and so on. I mean, we're being very comprehensive in our analysis to support it, and we'd be happy to explain wherever we end up, we'll be in a position to explain it and answer all questions about it. Substantially. So,
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to introduce ordinance 881.
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Ms. Hook? Yes. Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Ms. McCollum?
Yes.
Ms. Steeler?
Yes.
Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
All right, item 15 is a series of resolutions and Reggie, Madam Clerk, I'll yield to you. Should I entertain a motion to do these minus 39 and 47?
Yes.
Okay, so first, I'll generally put out there if anyone would like to pull anything aside for an explanation or vote beyond those two, but resolutions 39 and 47, one involving the water main renewal and the other about the train station construction we can't do until next month, just based on the funding time periods, as we're just too early to issue it at this moment. So those ones, I'll have to not be part of this motion, but also accept if anyone would like to pull anything else out from it. Hearing none, I'll remind, or I'll ask David on 38. This is a repeat of a previously discussed out of borough sewer connection request. Yep. Right, it's one that we already publicly talked about and denied under our policy at a previous meeting. We've been requested to do it again because of a notice issue. 40 is we talked about earlier, that's the concession or contract with the with the lead paint contractor. I think the other one of notice, I want to thank everyone on our salary ordinance. A lot of thought went into this. I felt from council a very strong commitment to do our best to do right by our employees and be as close. This was a difficult year for inflation for everyone, and a lot of work and extra thought went into making sure that we are having our excellent staff in the place that we think they should be. With that, I'd like to take that omnibus 38 to 48 minus 39 and 47 motion.
I'll move.
I'll
All right,
second.
I'm sorry.
second.
I second, Deb, that was first.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yeah,
Ms. McCollum?
Yeah.
Ms. Steeler?
Yeah.
Ms. Weaver?
Yeah.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
okay, I'll motion to approve claims for payment.
I
Okay.
didn't hear that. It was-
We have
I moved.
Krista and Deb, no, Sherry is second, sorry.
Ms. Hook?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yeah.
Ms. McCollum?
Yeah.
Ms. Steeler?
Yeah.
Ms. Weaver?
Yeah.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
To item 17, some additional appointments. I'll also note, while our communication committee was established, those appointments will happen at a later time. We're checking the ordinance to see if we need to do anything before we actually formally do that. And with that, we'll get into our council liaison reports, and with apologies that I feel like we need to have a system of like not surprising people with which way we go. Do we have a volunteer with it? All right,
I'll be quick.
sorry.
Open Space, met, this month. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to report, so it's not this week. But hopefully it'll be good news, moving forward for the borough. Department of Health, did not meet, but I did meet with Uma on some of the, health bullets for sustainable Jersey, and we're gonna be working with Dawn and Hopewell Township Board of Health, and you and I get together this week and catch up on that.
Okay.
So that's all that I have.
Deb, good on you.
Okay, so the library board met on March 5th. We have a new president in place and several new members. Mark was not in attendance, but. But we brought him up to speed on everything. One of the things we worked on is a resolution to recognize Woody for his years of service on the board. And also to have a process and procedure in place to deal with any potential efforts to ban books. So that was, formalized now to prevent that. We also got some good news from Doug that the windows were put in. We have one more on order, but the building is in much better shape now. So thanks for all your partnership on that. And then the recreation committee, we mailed out 900 and something flyers today. So thanks to everybody that contributed. They should be in your mailbox the next day or so. Thanks to Reggie and Christine for helping us get all that done. Lots of great new events this year. And building committee hasn't met since last meeting, so that's it.
Dave, you want to go next?
So PFAS, we, just put out the public notice, which probably everybody's gotten by now. Yeah, and, exciting stuff. Nothing new to report, I mean, same results, which is below the standard for 7 consecutive quarters. All good, so just that's a continuing requirement of DEP. Earlier in the month, Lisa and I in particular put a lot of time in on the administrative consent order. So we had a draft administrative consent order with the DEP, which would be a formal agreement that we would be subject to, regarding the installation of the treatment system on well number 4 and well number 6. It's tied in basically to this grant application that we are working on with the DEP, that would fund those treatment systems. So it's a long, complicated document. We made a lot of changes just to add additional information about the history of it and the milestones, what we've done, and also just fleshing it out, more details, and basically sent them a marked up copy. And thank you, Lisa. It was a good collaboration, and Doug and Ryan. And so who knows when we'll hear back? These things take a while. So we have the emerging contaminants in small or disadvantaged communities grant program, ECSDC. So kind of big milestone there was, we actually, the first stage of this grant application process, which is to get a number to the DEP for what we, approximate project cost, what we think it's gonna cost to put a treatment system on well number 4, and the treatment systems for well number 6, which has been offline since 2020. And that would require actually putting up a new building to house the treatment system for well number 6, which is in the park. The total cost estimate for that was $2.4 million. The way the grant program works is we give that number to the DEP. The DEP goes to the US EPA from whence the money comes and say, here's what Hopewell wants to do. Here's what I think it's going to cost. What do you think? And if EPA gives them a green light, then they come back to us, and the next thing would be to send out a request for proposal for the planning and design. So we'll see, waiting to hear on that. I'm not gonna bore you all this, but I'm just letting you know something I do. I spent a lot of time tracking our monthly water purchasing costs with New Jersey American because the rates keep changing, and Ryan very astutely came up with a draft, a submittal that they put to the Board of Public Utilities in January, basically proposing rate increases this year. So spent a lot more time than any of us would like to going through that 125-page tariff and understanding it. But anyway, the purpose of that is to see rate increases when they're coming before they hit us. And we have a pretty good idea now of what we're up against. It allows us to forecast for the next year and not get caught blindsided when they jack up the rates. And there's a 22% rate hike proposed that would probably take effect in September. So something we needed to know. In light of all that, also, because we're looking at budgeting and we're looking at water rates, trying to forecast what our actual cost would be for purchasing water in New Jersey American next year, in light of the new rates. So I did some modeling of that based on rates kicking in at various times, and also trying to understand what our demand is actually going to be, which is a little complicated because, as we've mentioned before, a homeowner repaired a leak that was actually responsible for over 7 million gallons of water a year, and probably cost us $100,000 over a 14-month period. But at any rate, with that leak being fixed, we have to then look at our water usage from the last couple of years and estimate what it would be without that leak and go forward. So I've been doing a lot of that, trying not to bore you with too much of that stuff. But anyway, and reviewed a draft water system evaluation report from Phoenix Advisors, our financial advisor, which is looking at the financial viability of the water system and options for the future. And built a rate calculation spreadsheet for us to analyze different options for the rate increases that we were talking about under this ordinance, so that we can look at different scenarios and find the best one for the town, for people. So that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Before I get into my liaison report for PBSAC, I just wanted to say really quickly that tomorrow, March 8th, is International Women's Day. And in the spirit of this day, I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate and thank all of the women who help make our town as wonderful as it is. So thank you to all of our female borough employees, committee members, fellow council women. I just want to say I'm honored and proud to be part of this majority female governing body. It's really exciting, and we just get a round of applause for all the women here. And then moving on to PBSAC. You don't have to be a woman in the class. We covered a lot of this already in the earlier presentation. PBSAC met on February 26th. We discussed the new exciting development of the new speed limit signs going up on West Broad and the no turn on red signs at Broad and Greenwood. The awareness campaign will proceed as planned in March. Councilwoman Millennius came to discuss EDC's parking plan. The committee will review the plan and we will discuss it and get back to any thoughts or questions. And then we said that we were going to review our phase 2 report, which is Hopewell Borough Road's heavy traffic and cut throughs. This is your Columbia's, your Hamilton's, railroads, those Lafayette's. So sort of that we did the county roads first. This is the borough roads now. That we'll be discussing any updates or changes to that at the March meeting. We also will be changing our meeting schedule, and Reggie, don't kill me. So we will now be meeting on the third Monday of the month, barring any holiday, as opposed to the last Monday of the month, which you're doing before. Part of the reason is just that lining up with council schedule, it made more sense to meet a little bit earlier in case there's anything we need to discuss during a council meeting. And then lastly, we discussed plans for National Bike Safety Month, which is May. The Greater Mercer Transportation Management Association has agreed to help us with the Street Smarts campaign. Doug and I already reviewed a lot of these materials with them and Chief Rosso, and we would like to get the elementary school involved as well. We know they already did a roll to school event last year. The end of last year. I was there, but I can't remember the timeline. So we'd like to have them do something like that again, or even like a bike rodeo during the school day. And then we will be talking about other ways to promote bike safety in the month of May at our next meeting later this month. And that's it for PBSAC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First, Green Team, the Green Team itself, I have held a very successful metal recycling event, this last month. And then Green Team kind of like Hopewell Borough. We have submitted a small grant application, which was approved tonight, for $2,000 on behalf of the borough to Sustainable Jersey. To support education and outreach, specifically, a program we want to bring out, which is going to be community potluck / picnics. They're going to be zero waste events. They're going to be very, it's just about bringing people together around food and, zero waste. And we're hoping to kind of get more, environmental activism, from some of that.
You have to eat everything you bring to the potluck, right?
What?
You have to eat everything.
Yeah, well, you have
Zero
to,
waste.
zero waste.
Be clear.
But it's literally carry it in, carry it out, y'all bring your own, it's just, but the idea is just to get together, it's a community building event. And then we also, as part of that grant, is some composting and composting education as well. And so that's going to morph into that we had an initial meeting here last month of what right now we're calling Hopewell Borough Green Advocates, because I'm trying to differentiate it somehow from the Hopewell Valley Green Team, so to give us a different name. And we kind of broke out into a few different initiatives. There's the composting team, which Sherry's gonna be a key part of. Thank you, Sherry. Exploring options for backyard, neighborhood, community, and curbside composting. We have also applied to be a Trex recycling center here, and so once we've got that actually up and going, that will be in the townwide email, and hopefully by that time we will also have social media and it will be shared there as well. Basically, if you're familiar with probably dropping off your old plastic bags at the grocery store, it's like that, but you can get like the plastic wrap on your toilet paper and your cereal bags and your plastic shipping envelopes from Amazon. We will have a collection point here at Borough Hall, volunteers, and we are looking for more volunteers, so please reach out if you're interested. We will be weighing and taking them to Wegmans. If we collect 1,000 pounds within a 12-month period, we get a lovely park bench made out of recycled plastic. It's also, I think, a really nice thing because a lot of grocery stores no longer have that opportunity because of the plastic bag ban in New Jersey. And so it's a nice way. I know in my house, I collect a lot of that type of plastic, and right now I'm paying TerraCycle to take it away. And this will be free. It doesn't cost the borough anything, but basically having the space at Borough Hall. So that'll be nice. We also are gonna be looking at improving our bulky waste practices in just kind of community education. The first thing that we hope to be able to do is have a car seat drive before April. Which will just be literally collecting them and taking them to the Target car seat drop off. These things are like really low hanging fruit. We can do it with volunteers, but if you make things like this easy for the residents, I think we want a lot fewer of those car seats going into the dumpsters on bulky waste day.
Right.
And
And is there any reason why they can't be used by?
safety, yeah,
Oh,
so
no, they
there's,
can't, okay.
so
they
these
get
are
recycled.
ones that can't be reused.
Got it.
And so, yes,
Expiration date.
they.
No, I'm sure there's all sorts of.
Right,
rules.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
It should be. Probably.
Unexpired safe car seats should be reused, but there's a lot that expire and Target takes them back and recycles their parts. And then we also have kind of land and water team that's gonna be looking at ways to encourage sustainable land care. And, I'm also gonna be meeting with Doug more about like, you know, how we can educate the community on stormwater management, what residents can be doing as well. I would say we discussed many other ideas, so we are always looking for new volunteers. So if people want to get involved in this, just reach out to me. My email is on the borough website. That is Green Team. The EDC liaison report, we have 2 new members, Ethan Unick from Aunt Chubby's and Brian Samuels from Princeton Auto Sports. We do currently have 1 opening for an alternate and expect to soon have a 2nd opening just because of a member who's moving away. Brianna Perone is now serving as our chair, and Carol Kehoe, way in the back, is our new vice chair. And Lori will stay on as secretary, Lori Cleveland will stay on as secretary. The parking we discussed earlier, so I will skip over that part. We are going to be presenting, our suggestion regarding a formula business restriction, as we mentioned in last month's report, to the planning board during the master plan public comment period, which I think is gonna be next month, starting next month. Yeah. Our first cruise night of 2024 has been scheduled for May 10th, with a rain date of May 17th. We put 1 date on the calendar. We want to make sure to get on the calendar. We do hope to have additional cruise nights throughout the year. And those will be put on the borough website and shared at my social, but May 10th with a rain date of May 17th. The planters that have the trees in them for the holidays should be replanted, around Earth Day, by Sauerland Conservancy volunteers. If anybody would like to join in that volunteer effort, again, please reach out. And we are working on finding additional funding from both grants and small business sponsors to supplement the borough budget for replanting those planters. Once the trees are out, then we're gonna be putting in native plants. And so we're gonna try to work to make that happen. We are also working with downtown Hopewell to create a large display map / signage inside of, the big white windows at the Hopewell Pharmacy, they're empty. So both downtown Hopewell and the EDC kind of want to partner on this, and both the pharmacy and the building owner are in support of the reusing those windows for the benefit of the whole community. We've also, we have talked, and I've gotten feedback from other members of the community that they're also interested in this, and like improved lighting, possibly boulevard banners. They're those little banners that are about yay big up on lampposts. So that's something, just ideas that we're discussing, to try to maximize the, here is a town that you want to be safe in and you want to shop in and, you know. And I think we've said before, we're really looking, I think we are getting close to having social media. Correct, Mayor? So we're very excited, looking forward to having social media. And we also look forward to working, I know Mayor Kennedy spoken about meeting with professionals to explore what tools we might have to be more proactive addressing the issue of vacant storefronts in town. And while we don't have our answers yet, we just want everyone to know we are working on that and you know, internally. Thank you. I think that's it.
Hey, well, one quick question that
Sure.
triggered by the banner idea, but
Yeah.
I know we kind of kept alive the idea of the old Hopewell Business Association
Yes.
directional signage. I wonder if that would be a good
Yeah,
post.
Those
for
are,
the-
yes, actually, those are still
Well,
there.
they're still
They
there.
are still there. For some reason, I thought they could,
I had asked
they had got, yeah, and I thought they had gotten taken down. Somebody, one of the downtown Hopewell new merchants said, it's like, we keep trying to get people to pick up this project and it keeps dying again. But we've got somebody that said that they were enthusiastic about.
Well, my suggestion is that they would be a great place for a banner-like thing like you're describing.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, we'll
use
see
the
if we can
posts
fix. Yeah,
for that,
yeah.
in the interim.
Yeah, they're strategically placed, so that's
Yeah.
a good idea. And they're nice looking, they're actually not in bad shape, so we
Yeah,
can
actually,
paint it and add the current stores on them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay, I will be quick. Shade tree, we got the, report from last year from DPW. They took down 16 trees. We had 156 trees planted, but that includes the 140 in Sourland Conservancy.
Very
It's a nice
optimistic.
number, those little foodlings. I'll take it, yeah. And they came to the meeting this morning saying they have more, so, they'll bring us trees as long as we can find
Wonderful.
places from, so yeah, they're great. Senior Advisory Board is offering free tax help for seniors. For those of you who somehow managed to do your taxes before April, I commend you on that, but they have free tax help every Tuesday at Mercer County Library. You have to be 60 and older, but for those of you, who maybe, I don't see anyone in this room that will, but, and so the Hopewell Fire Department Emergency Medical Unit had a combined 6 calls in January, and I just as I was walking into this meeting, got a email from Chief Reed that, I don't know if you read it, is really remarkable. Just the other night, they responded to a call where by the time they got there, which was within 5 minutes of Ewing? No, Amwell, in East Amwell. Anyway, the patient had gone into cardiac arrest, which apparently is really critical. Most people don't recover from that, but they resuscitated this patient. They worked with some EMUs from Lambertville. They got a police assist that went to Capitol Hill. Anyway, they revived this patient. So it was a really remarkable and successful story. So I went to the commissioners meeting. One of the things that Hopewell Borough does, we give the township about $17,000 for an as-needed use of a Capitol Health ambulance. And so this is sort of an example of that money sort of, working really well. And as a further reminder, if you're looking to donate, they don't charge patients for these ambulance calls. I always thought an ambulance call would cost a lot of money, but it costs nothing, and they save your life, so it's like a good, they save your life.
Thank you, everyone. A couple things from me. It's our school board rep is here tonight. The 3 mayors are meeting as part of their outreach about this next year's budget session and the referendum on Monday. I'm appreciative in particular for our representative and Pennington's, as you know, we struggle with the effects of affordability on our community. I'm appreciative of the leadership that we have on the school board. This is not a commentary on what the school board is spending or needs to do, but the stars unfortunately do not align well for our town as far as our portion of whatever that is this year. And I'm expecting that because the value of our town has increased as compared to Hopewell Township, and the number of things that we divide that cost across has decreased, that it will be a challenging year for our school taxes. And again, that is not a commentary on what they're spending or programming, but just the reality of how they are apportioned, which will continue to be a focus for us as a borough to manage that affordability. Having said that, the theme here unfortunately is lack of affordability. We'll be talking about that with our rate increase. I sat through a presentation today from New Jersey American Water. As Councilman Mackey said, they are increasing their rates 22% this year, which will affect us. And I did reach out. There is a program for low-income residents that they have that they didn't really ever think about how that would apply to us. And maybe there's some benefit from us there. David also mentioned our visit with iBank, that used to be called the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust. It is a group that helps communities borrow money more or less for infrastructure needs. Part of our goal, frankly, to leave no stone unturned when it comes to funding sources for our infrastructure. I've reached out to our legislators this week. If you follow affordable housing, you might see that there's been a suite of bills that will impact us that are advancing through the legislature. Their exact impact on us is unclear, but ultimately, as a community, I feel that we have made the decision that the inclusionary housing is important to us, and we work towards that. But the state also puts requirements on us that are changing, that ultimately cost us a lot of money and don't result in any houses being built or units or affordability changes for our community, and just go into, I'm sorry, Lisa, I'm gonna turn two, but go to the attorneys and planners and don't really result in housing opportunities. I'm following one of them in particular that will have an impact on property taxes as well, which is concerning to me. I don't know if we mentioned this last month, but we were targeted by Verizon for a piece of litigation about property taxes starting in, 2009. We won a case there about how that is apportioned. It's quite a bit to get to that point. The New Jersey Supreme Court has decided to take up that case. So while we won the first round from 2009, and there is a chance that that could be undone or heard. So the unfortunate case of Verizon versus Hopewell Borough, which is essentially about whether and when they pay property taxes for the value of the copper wires on the poles. And we've been kind of back and forth with them on this for the past decade and a half. And unfortunately, it is not done. I want to thank Heidi and Krista. Our communications committee has met and will continue to meet. A lot of positive, I think, changes and ideas and things we're implementing there. Last night was the second month of Zoom broadcasts for our planning board meeting. We're gonna test in a few minutes for those who are still online. If someone wants to do a public comment over Zoom. I've weaseled my way into getting something to the Hopewell Express. So as committees have things that need to be communicated, that is just another thing on the list of things that we have access to get the word out to our residents. We discussed as a committee, and I want to poll council, but we're on video here, they're recorded. Many communities put them on YouTube or archive them easily. The recommendation from the communication committee is to consider that, and it's an easy storage thing, doesn't cost us anything necessarily. But it would be a change for sure, and just wanted to toss that out there to get any comments or concerns you have, and they don't have to be at this moment. Please share them as we think about doing that. And as Heidi indicated, the Instagram and Facebook as broadcast points for our information are the next steps, and the recommendation, I guess, is to retire X or Twitter and focus on those two other avenues.
I feel strongly about that one, yes.
I imagine most people in town would, yeah.
Yes.
Next round of my office hours, I just want to thank Doug again for joining me at these. Is this Saturday at 9 a.m. I have been surprised. There's not been a time that we've come in that someone hasn't come to talk about something. So there's been people who come to people who come to meetings, people I've never met before, to be honest with you. We're really trying to have as many ways as people are comfortable to interact with us. So the next one is Saturday at 9 a.m. here, then next week, Wednesday at 1 o'clock. As Heidi kind of hinted at our next planning board meeting, we will be having a hearing on, and again, this will be in all our newsletters, on our master plan. On the website, you can read the draft report. If you have comments on it, the next planning board meeting will likely be the time to share those with the planning board so that they can incorporate them into their master plan revision. I also want to thank, this is a bit of a wild goose chase, but Reggie found some information about our liquor license that I have a glimmer of hope on, small glimmer, that we might find some more information, but I appreciate Reggie finding some historic information, I'll say that.
Please.
Reggie.
Well, the hope is with the revised liquor license laws that the governor signed, they don't really do much for a town of our size. They might allow some resurrection of old dormant things, and we're looking to see if we have anything that's dormant. That would be a boon or a windfall for us should such a thing materialize. There will be we received a proclamation, there's a couple discussions about hints at dark sky things. During the week of our April meeting, it is Dark Sky Week, Dark Sky Awareness Week. We have a proclamation we'll do then, but I'll kind of preview that because our meeting is kind of halfway through the week. In everyone's packet, there was some information on the area in need of rehabilitation designation. Heidi was mentioning, some of these tools that we're gonna start thinking about to help our downtown. That is one of them. And that will incorporate, and Reggie will start working on dates for this kind of retreat concept to educate ourselves about how some of these things work. And finally, I was honored to do my first wedding for a resident a few weeks ago. I'll just note they were very kind to make a donation towards the train station. So my goal is another 10,000 or so weddings over the year. Set to finish the.
Pay for everything, right?
I want to thank, before we go back to public, our last public sessions, we'll thank everyone on council for their hard work this month. Reggie, Doug, Lisa, and everyone on your team, very much appreciative. And actually, thank you reminded me that the summary from planning last night. But the planning board approved the variances needed for the Evolve Sky application. That was the cannabis license that was awarded to at the backside of the Hopewell 57 site. So with that.
Can I say one thing that I forgot to mention? I wanted to thank Doug. He brought up an opportunity for a grant for the Recreation Committee for certain amount of money that we might be able to use to enhance like the playground or create a path or something like that. So I'm gonna be reaching out to parents of school-age children to see if they have any ideas about, maybe adding to our existing playgrounds or seeing what we can do. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
With that, I'd like to open up the meeting for our second public comment section, and I'll also invite, just as a test, if anyone viewing on Zoom wants to push the raise hand button, happy to try to entertain a comment from you as well.
Somebody on Zoom. What we should think?
But go for it, anyone in person as well, so anyone.
Melissa, good. I have a question. I'm looking through the list of bills, and there's $24,000 worth of legal expenses. Is that the average for a month?
This is looking like.
It is not.
Can you give me any more information on what? What?
I think that's actually,
Okay.
there's January in there, and I believe so, and some of February.
Could that be related?
It's January and February, one. There are a couple of them, but. Nathan Griffin Pearson. It said $21,000.
Yeah.
So I don't know what period that covers, but there's several, unfortunately, several pieces of litigation that we're defending. One of them recently ended, and I'm hoping that will stop bleeding on some of them. But that is unfortunately the cost of, no, that doesn't reflect that yet either. Yeah.
Yeah, we had 12 and 9, yeah, 21 total.
Okay.
For the 2 months, for 2 months.
We've had legal support for environmental issues related to the DEP and
Right.
and Sentinel and all that stuff.
So normally, do you have any idea what the average is for legal? So it was the two big, cannabis, chubbies.
Our bill list is broken down by vendor rather than by topic, so
Right.
we could, you know, I don't know how to best answer that question, you know.
Okay.
Some of them, it's a function of,
I mean,
being a couple of months and stacking up. Sometimes it's particularly busy months with active litigation. An average would be, you know, at least, I don't know, I don't want to be, and I'm not asking you to figure out an average, but that's a tough question to answer.
okay.
But I think you're correct, it's a big
Higher,
month.
okay.
Yeah, we've been moving a lot of initiatives forward. We see all the
So that's-
ordinances that are on and everything, so
Okay.
that's all part of that.
Thank you.
So we have at least one person who put their hand up. In order to speak, I have to promote you to panelist. If you'd like to, don't decline. There we go. So this will, hopefully, the person will come over, to the other side and we'll give this a go.
Oh, we got a face.
All right, so if you would like to turn your camera on and, state your name and, you're welcome to make your comment.
Do I have to turn my camera on?
You don't, no, you do not have to. We will decide from a policy perspective.
It'd be more exciting if you did.
Yeah, like, hi, you can barely see me. Forget it. I don't have my hair done.
Well, you,
All right, but the test has worked, correct?
you've confirmed that it works and also confirmed that maybe this was a bad idea. So thank you for testing. If you actually do have a substantive comment, you may make it. If you were just here to test and make sure it worked, we appreciate it.
Just helping you out there. All right, where are the other 7 people who are online? All right, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I guess I'll say the successful test. We'll talk offline about the process to roll this out. But we were excited to see how that actually worked.
A motion to.
With that, I will take a motion to close the public.
Been a long
Section.
Christie, you've been all day.
We got a move, and do we have a second to close public? All right, Samaritan,
You want a second?
I mean, I will. second.
someone needs
I'll
to.
second.
Thanks for all in favor of closing the public comments?
Aye.
Also, please entertain a motion to end the meeting as well.
And-
I entertain it, and then Deb, second, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Hold on, we are still broadcasting.
Yeah.